Good evening, parents and community members, and welcome to our Division of Academics, Family and Community Cluster Trainings. We are glad that you are joining us this evening. We hope that you find the information that we share valuable to you. We will have points during the training where we stop and ask you for questions, so please be prepared to ask any questions that you may have in the chat. We will go ahead and get started. So here are our meeting norms for this afternoon. Be polite and respectful to others. Ask questions in the chat. We have team members on the call who will be prepared to answer your questions. Stay focused on the 4 topics at hand. Be patient and assume everyone is doing their best. Our agenda for this evening, you just heard your welcome. We will do some introductions of those on the call. We will discuss our K-12 universal screeners, NWEA MAP, and the BASC-3 BESS. We will discuss intervention and enrichment. We will also talk about securely and answer any questions that you may have, and then we will ask you for feedback at the end of the session. So a little bit about the Division of Academics. We are led by our Chief Academic Officer, Ms. Yolanda Brown. We have 3 different departments within the Division of Academics. My name is Selena Florence, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. We also have Student Services, which is led by Dr. Katika Lovett. And then finally, we have Instructional Technology, which is led by Aaliyah Henderson-Rosser. A little more about our division. So you see the 3 departments in our division. Teaching and learning is made up of curriculum and instruction, ESOL, DLI, and world languages, early learning, CTAE and signature programs, SEL or social emotional learning, and JROTC. Our student services department is made up of health services, student supports and interventions, special education, and summer and after school programs. And finally, instructional technology is made up of media services, instructional development and design, instructional technology, and virtual programs, or AVA. Our strategic plan is really what guides our work. It is our anchor. It provides goals for us as well as action steps that we use to meet those goals. It is what drives all the work that we do in the Division of Academics. And so we wanted to make sure that you were aware that that is what is guiding everything we do in our division. We also have 4 strategic priorities that lead our work: fostering academic excellence for all, building a culture of student support, equipping and empowering leaders and staff, and creating a system of support for schools. And all 4 of those priorities wrap around equity, excellence, and engagement. We also have our APS 5, which is new to APS this year. They are 5 best practices that we expect to see in all of our schools. They are data. We use data to drive all of our instructional decisions in our buildings. We also have curriculum and instruction. We implement rigorous and culturally relevant and linguistically responsive curriculum with fidelity in all core content areas. The third is whole child and intervention. We implement a whole child system of supports that integrates social emotional learning, behavior, wellness, and comprehensive academic intervention plans. Fourth, we have personalized learning, which is new to our district this year. We utilize flexible learning tools, technology integration, and targeted instruction to personalize learning for all of our students. And finally, signature programming. We will strengthen the implementation of signature programming across all of our schools this school year. You see 2 priorities that really ground the APS 5 for us: fostering academic excellence for all of our students and building a culture of student support so that all of our students feel the support that we are providing. So we will now get to the first section of our meeting this afternoon. Our first section is all around NWEA MAP, which is our universal screener. So a little bit about MAP. It is a computer adaptive assessment in both reading and math. Computer adaptive just means that the questions get harder or easier depending on how your child responds to the questions. MAP is a part of our APS academic recovery plan that will guide us over the course of the next 3 years. It also serves as the first time that APS has had a K-12 universal screener. So all of our students in all elementary, middle, and high schools will take the MAP screener 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. MAP is also connected to our strategic plan, which you just heard about. It helps us to identify student learning needs at the school level. So teachers know exactly what students need based on this assessment. It helps us to set and monitor school and student goals. It also guides instruction and intervention plans. So we use this data to help us know what to do during core instruction and also during intervention. And it also helps us to know how much your students have grown over the course of the school year. So again, we take it 3 times a year. So we will be able to tell from the MAP data how students have grown from fall all the way to spring. So the MAP assessment suite is made up of 2 different components. We have MAP reading fluency. The MAP reading fluency assessment is given to all of our pre-K through 2nd grade students, and some 3rd graders take it as well. MAP reading fluency really assesses foundational skills. And so teachers are able to know if students know letters, letter sounds, recognize their letters. It is a 20-minute assessment, and it helps teachers to know how best to group students based on what they have learned or what they know from this assessment. It is available in both English and in Spanish. So MAP growth is given to all K through 12 students. It is given for both math and literacy. Again, it helps teachers to use the data. Teachers get the data, they can use it to help form small groups and know how best to meet the needs of their students. It is also available in both English and in Spanish. A little more about MAP growth. As I said earlier, the questions get harder or easier depending on how the students answer the questions. So it's adapting to what students know. It measures what students know and what they are ready to learn next. So it tells the teachers, this is what they are ready to learn next. It measures both growth and achievement over time. So we will know how much your child has grown from beginning of year to end of year, and also their specific levels of achievement. Students participating in our Spanish GLI program will take both the Spanish and English assessments. Our Spanish-speaking English learner newcomers, whose Spanish literacy is stronger than their English literacy, will take the Spanish assessment. Remember, MAP growth is given to all students in K through 12, in grades K through 12, and it is given for math and literacy. Our MAP reading fluency assessment, remember, is given to our pre-K through 2nd grade students. It is online. It's assessing our foundational and oral reading skills for beginning readers through independent readers. It measures comprehension of material that is read aloud to students. It also has a speech recognition piece, and that technology allows students to speak into the computer, and then it assesses or scores them based on what the computer has heard. It is assessing foundational skills for our early learners. So we completed our first MAP assessment September 20th. So you should have received at this point in time a family report. This is a sample family report that you see on the screen. The family report, at the top, you see several questions that are there to help you as a parent know and understand your child's scores. In the middle, you see a math section, and at the bottom, you see a reading section. So this report is giving you the key results of your child for this particular assessment. It gives you a summary of the subjects that were tested, which for us are math and reading. It also provides data to let you know if your child is on track, and that is on track to be successful on the milestones, and also on track for ACT or SAT if they are in secondary. The report provides you with strengths and weaknesses for your child, and also helps you to know what you can do at home to help support your child based on this particular piece of data. You should have also received a family guide with your family report, and the family guide really just gives you more information about the MAP assessment itself. It helps you understand how the assessment works, the computer adaptive piece. It tells you what the assessment actually measures over the course of time. It gives you more information about your child's RIT score, which is the score they receive when they finish the test. And then it also has some common questions that parents ask as they receive or review their child's test scores. At the bottom, you see a website that you can go to find out more information about the MAP assessment and also to find more resources about MAP. So at this time, we will take any questions that you all have about the NWEA MAP assessment. All right, so if there are no questions, I will turn it over to Dr. Shannon Hervey, who will lead our next section of the presentation.
Good evening, South Atlanta. Yes, my name is Shannon Hervey. I'm the Director of Student Support and Intervention for Atlanta Public Schools, and I'm excited to speak with you tonight about the BASS-3 BESS. Next slide. As part of the Whole Child Framework, the district secured its first ever universal social emotional behavior screener, which is the BASS-3 BESS. The BESS screens for a variety of behavior and emotional disorders that can lead to adjustment problems. This tool is a quick and efficient way to screen students ages 3 to 18 for behavior and emotional risks. Next slide. So you may be asking, why screen for social, emotional, behavioral health? In addition to learning more about the risks all students may be subject to, the beauty of this screener is that it will help to put students on the radar of school staff who otherwise may not be there. What we have learned is that schools may not be aware of the inner and emotional struggles of students who don't or won't advocate for themselves, or students with good grades and typical behavior. The data from this screener will create an evidence-based pathway for students to receive additional supports, provide information that will help schools to focus effort, time, and resources on students who have the highest needs, and will aid schools in making big picture programming decisions in support of students. Next slide. The screener will be administered twice per school year, once in the fall and once in the spring. The fall administration window opened September the 16th and closed October the 1st. The spring administration window will open February the 15th and close March the 1st. Screening was completed during a student's homeroom period, advisement period, or during the period designated at the school level. Parents will receive a score report following each administration window. And for the fall administration, parents could have expected student reports to be sent home as of last week. The World Languages Department worked collaboratively with Student Support and Intervention to ensure that the needs of English learners and their families were addressed throughout the screening process. And the World Languages Department will work with schools to ensure that all families understand their child's screener report. Next slide. Digital access of the screener was available in English and Spanish. Pen and paper administration was available in multiple languages, including English, Spanish, Arabic, Portuguese, Farsi, Chinese, and French. One-to-one or group administration opportunities were available for students who needed support to complete the screener. And parents and teachers were provided an opportunity to complete the screener on behalf of students who may have mild intellectual disabilities that impeded their ability to complete the student form. Next slide. Any parent of a student ages 8 to 18 who did not wish for their child to take the student self-assessment portion of the BASS-3 BESS was invited to return the opt-out form to their child's school. Parents only need to opt out of the screener once during each school year. Next slide. The BASS-3 BESS will analyze a student's behavior from 3 perspectives, that being the teacher, the parent, and student self-report. Students ages 8 to 18 completed the self-assessment. However, screener information for students younger than age 8 was to be provided by teachers and parents. Teachers provided screener information for students in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. Parents were invited to provide screener information for students in grades pre-K through the 12th grade. Teachers and parents spent 5 minutes or less to complete the screener, and students spent 5 to 15 minutes to complete the student self-assessment portion. Next slide. Take a moment to take note of the screener indexes and their explanations. These acronyms you will see again in the next few slides as I preview a sample score report. The screener will produce student data that is measured in risk. Teacher and parent forms will reveal whether a student is at risk for externalizing behaviors, such as hyperactivity or aggression, internalizing behaviors, such as anxiety or depression, or adaptive skills deficits, or problems with communication or social skills. Student forms will reveal whether a student is at risk for internalizing behaviors, self-regulation deficits, such as hyperactivity or attention problems, or personal adjustment deficits, such as relationship problems, self-esteem challenges, or self-reliance issues. Students are given an overall score, which is the BERIT score, and that indicates how far their score is from the average of the norm group. The color coding gives you a glance at how risk is measured as normal risk, which is green, elevated risk, which is yellow, or extremely elevated risk, which is red. Next slide. This is an example of a score report for a student that was completed by a teacher. We want you to have an opportunity to view an example of what a screener report could tell you for each student. Let's pause for a few seconds so that you can review, and the next few slides will provide more explanation of the individual components of a score report. Next slide. Let's start by taking a closer look at our sample report. At the top of the score report, you see who the rater or respondent was, the validity index summary, and the assessment results at a glance. If you look in the column that says assessment results, you see the BERI, or the Behavioral and Emotional Risk Index, which indicates how far away from the norm average your student scored. Remember the color coding that I referenced earlier. The red dot next to the BERI tells us that this student has scored as extremely elevated in risk, which may indicate a need for support. Also noted is that internal risk, which measures risk for behaviors associated with depression or anxiety, is slightly more of a concern than external risk, which measures risk for behaviors associated with hyperactivity or aggression. That being said, since this student scored extremely elevated for both internal and external risk, support may be needed in both areas. Next slide. The validity indicators provide an explanation of the extent to which this particular score report may be considered valid and that you can trust the outcome of what you see. Validity index indicators will show as green for acceptable, yellow for caution, or red for extreme caution. The F index will let you know how harsh or overly negative the rater was in their responses. The consistency index will let you know if there were different responses provided to questions that are similar. The response pattern index lets you know if a pattern was detected that may indicate that the rater selected answers randomly or in a pattern. Here you see that the consistency index is caution, which means that there was a question of how consistent the rater was in responding to questions that were asking similar content. Next slide. Now let's take an opportunity to review some of the teacher responses. The teacher has noted the following as areas of strength in the student, and this is noted by the almost always column associated with positive behaviors. According to this teacher, the student is well organized and does well at getting people to work together. If we look at areas of growth, we can see that the teacher has noted the following concerns or areas of growth as indicated by the almost always column associated with negative behaviors. According to the teacher, this student worries, has poor self-control, has a short attention span, is easily stressed, and appears tense. Next slide. You may ask, so what happens next after the screener? The screener is a starting point for next steps in determining the best course of action to support students. After schools review data screener reports, school-based student support staff are meeting with students of elevated or extremely elevated risk to confirm that risk and identify need. They will then contact the parents to discuss risk and recommend a strategy of school support. After that, schools will support the student in a manner agreed upon by the school, the parent, and the student, and then monitor progress. Next slide. There are many interventions that schools have access to and can use to support students. Here you see sample interventions that schools may recommend to support the needs of your student. Based on the needs that have been identified, schools can determine additional interventions and strategies to utilize for support. There is not a cookie cutter approach to supporting students, so the work that will go into recommending and tailoring support to fit the needs of students will be essential in helping those students to make progress, succeed, and thrive. Next slide. If you would like to learn more about the BAS3 BESS, we have added a page to our Student Support and Interventions Department webpage that provides in-depth information about the screener. To access this page, please visit the APS website noted at the top of this slide. Here, parents have access to some of the most widely asked questions that I have received regarding this screener. And that concludes my presentation for this evening. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. I will pass it back to Dr. Florence, who will discuss intervention and enrichment.
So good evening once again, South Atlanta families. Our next portion of the presentation is all about intervention and enrichment. So here are the expectations for intervention and enrichment for this school year. All of our elementary schools and some of our middle schools have an intervention or enrichment block. The block takes place 4 days a week, 2 days for reading and 2 days for math. All other middle schools and high schools are doing intervention or enrichment during a class or a course. We use data like the data we just talked about with math. We use that data to determine what happens during the intervention block, class, or course. Schools also use our HMH provided resources and APEX provided resources during the intervention block, class, or course. Schools have the autonomy to determine how enrichment looks in their buildings. Some have decided to use Renzulli, which is our platform that we provided for them, but they may also be doing coding or makerspace, book clubs, anything that they feel would benefit their students during the enrichment block, class, or course. So a little more about intervention. The scheduled block for all schools, elementary schools have a 30-minute block, middle schools have 45 minutes, and high schools have 90 minutes. Our content focus areas are on literacy and on math, and we use a comprehensive assessment system. So we use the universal screener that we talked about at the beginning of tonight's presentation. But we also progress monitor along the way to make sure that students are making the needed progress to be successful by the end of the year. So a little bit about the structure of the intervention block class or course. There are 4 main components, and we call that the workshop model. So at the beginning, the teacher would start in whole group and give the students an overview of the lesson, of what they should be learning for the day. And then the students move to 3 different rotations. The first rotation starts with a student application, which students use their devices to work on one of the platforms we mentioned previously, HMH or Apex. It creates a learning path for them, and it's built specifically around the needs of that individual student. Students would then rotate to independent reading. So they would have time just to read. And during math intervention, they would have time to do math practice on a specific skill. The third rotation is small group learning. And so students would have time with the teacher in a small group working on specific areas of need for those specific groups of students. Finally, the class would return to whole group, and the teacher would review the day's lessons. So those are the 4 components of the intervention block class or course: whole group learning, student application on a device, independent reading or independent math practice, and then finally small group learning with the teacher. We will take any intervention questions you have at the end of the presentation. I will now turn it over to Dr. Natasha Rachel for our Securely presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Florence, and hello to our South Atlanta cluster families. So excited to be here with you tonight to share a little bit with you about Securely, which you are going to absolutely love. So just have a question for you, a couple questions, parents. I wonder, do you ever wonder what your students are doing on their APS issued devices while they are at home? Do you ever wonder, are they engaged in their homework? Are they doing their homework assignments when they're locked up in their rooms once they get home from school? Well, if you have wondered about any of these questions, Securely is here to help you and make sure that you know what's going on your students' APS issued devices. And so what we invite you to do tonight is to go ahead and scan that QR code with your cell phone or your iPad if you're able to, or you can also go to the website that we have there on the screen for you, and it will take you to a ton of information about Securely. Next slide. So what exactly is Securely? So it is a parent portal that puts your student safety at your fingertips. So with this Securely Parent app, the Securely Home app, you will have a peace of mind as a parent to know that your student is not looking at inappropriate content or searching for harms or terms that could be harmful to themselves. And it gives you a snapshot of what your students are doing. And so you have a ton of different features at your fingertips, including pausing the internet, making sure that you are receiving different push notifications when your students are searching for maybe harmful terms. And you also have real-time online activity feeds that you have access to anytime from anywhere. Next slide. So if you didn't know, APS is now one-to-one. So what does that mean for you and your student? What that means is that every student in Atlanta Public Schools now has an APS issued device, which is awesome. So for our pre-K and kindergarten students, they all have access to an iPad. And for our 1st through 12th graders, they all have access to a Chromebook. And Securely works on all of the Chromebooks, but at this time, it does not yet work on the iPads. So you probably have seen these devices starting to come home. Maybe your student is bringing them home in their backpack after school and working on homework. And so that's why they have that device. If you have not yet heard, it's because we are now one-to-one. So what we're going to do now is take a look at a video that explains what Securely is.
Grammarly Business is an AI-powered writing assistant, enabling teams around the world.
Every time a school chooses Securely, a multi-layered digital defense is put in place. That's why we're so excited your school has chosen Securely and entrusted your child's online safety to us. Whenever your student is on their school device, we're at work behind the scenes protecting them from inappropriate content or flagging activities that might point to self-harm or bullying. Think of us as your extra set of eyes, keeping kids safe in the digital world. In an effort to make your child's online experience as positive as possible, Securely makes it easier for parents to be looped in by providing you with a weekly email, including a snapshot of your child's online activity. But that's just the beginning. Once you download the Securely Home app, you'll have the ability to view a live feed of your child's online activity, including what sites they're visiting and what searches they're making. With Securely Home, you have the option to enable push notifications and receive alerts for any flagged activities, such as self-harm or bullying. But Securely's home features don't stop when your child leaves school. When school devices come home, the Securely app makes it possible for those devices to play by your rules. Choose to filter your own set of websites and categories. Even hit pause on the internet if you need to. Plus, you're able to set an automated offline schedule for the internet, perfect for dinner or bedtime. For now, be sure to keep an eye out for the email from us containing a download link to the Securely Home app, plus instructions on getting started. Thank you once again for allowing Securely to be part of keeping your child safe online. We look forward to partnering with you in this pursuit.
So hopefully that's given you a little bit more of an overview of what Securely is and gotten you a little bit more excited about using it with your students. So how do you access this amazing resource that we have in place for you? Well, if you have an email on file in Infinite Campus, an email has already been sent to that account. So what you'll want to do is go to that email address and search for an email from Securely. If you don't have your email in Infinite Campus, we're going to walk you through how to do that. Next slide. So how do you update your email address in Infinite Campus? So glad you asked. What you're going to do, you can go ahead and click to the next slide, is what you're going to do is when you get to Infinite Campus, you're going to click on the More menu, and then you're going to select Family Information. Once you select family information, you're going to click update, which is right next to the family member whose contact information that you wish to update. So if you look at those red boxes there, that'll show you exactly what to click. And then you'll want to make sure that you go ahead and update the email address from there. Next slide. So from here, like I said, you'll make your desired changes and click update. Make sure you click that blue update button to save that information, and then we will have access to that information. Shortly after you update your email address, you will receive that email from Securely. And again, you'll just want to make sure you check your email inbox and search for that Securely email, and then you'll be able to have access to this amazing resource. So now that you have updated your email address and we've got all that information in there, you're going to look for that email. And you also have another step to do. You want to make sure that you download the Securely Home app. So this is available in the Apple Play Store or your Android Google Play Store. It's available on all platforms. So you'll just go to your App Store, search for Securely Home app, and click the download button from there. Next slide. So once you get to Securely and you've logged in and you have access to this app, you're going to land on the home screen. And just to kind of show you a little bit about what you'll have access to, you will have your menu icon, which gives you the menu of what's available in Securely. You will have access just with a quick press to the activity feed. So the activities and the resources that your child is searching or doing on their device. You will also have a rules button, which will allow you to set different rules and parameters. We'll talk about all this in just a second. Also flagged activities, which I think you're going to really appreciate, and then offline schedules. And then at the bottom there, you'll see that you have the ability to also pause the internet. So we're going to talk about all of that right now. Next slide. So the first button you have there is the activity feed, and this provides you just real-time, quick snapshot of your child's online activity. This is super important for you, as you know, you could be sitting across from them at the dinner table, or they could be upstairs in their bedroom and you could be downstairs, but it just gives you a quick snapshot to see what they're doing, what they're searching, what online resources they've gone to or online websites they've gone to, and it's just right there, like I keep saying, at your fingertips. Next slide. Then you have your flagged activity section. So if your student happens to be searching for inappropriate terms, or they're searching for self-harm terms or bullying terms, anything that would be of concern, it will throw what I like to call a red flag. And so you will have access to those flagged activities. We also receive those flags here in Atlanta Public Schools. Our security department receives those. And so we definitely have your child's best interests at heart. Next slide. Then you have your rules button, which this actually might be my favorite button, this and the pause button. So the rules section allows you to set specific parameters for what time your child can use their device. For example, if dinner time is between 5 and 7 and you don't want your students to be on their devices during that time, you can set a rule so that they're not on their devices from 5 to 7. You can also block certain websites. If you don't want them to get on certain websites while they're at home, you can go ahead and block those websites as well. Next slide. Then you have offline schedules. This just allows parents to set specific time windows for their child's internet access. So again, not necessarily blocking websites, but setting specific times that they're able to be on their device. So if you're an early bird going to sleep at, let's say 9 p.m. and you know your student is still staying awake doing homework, but you want them to shut it down at midnight so they get a good night's sleep, you can go ahead and create an offline schedule from 12 midnight to 7 a.m. that will just allow your student to make sure they're going to sleep and not being on their device. Next slide. And the last one is pausing the internet. So this button here allows you to just pause the internet. It pauses that internet connectivity and it just allows them to have access to the device without that internet connection. Another way you can manage your child's device. Next slide. So with Securely, you are by default going to receive an email, a weekly summary that will give you an overall report of what your student is searching, if they have searched for harmful terms or inappropriate terms. But we know that our inboxes get super overwhelmed and inundated. So if you would like to opt out of those emails or unsubscribe, we have made some directions for you to show you how to do that. So all you'll do from the email, any email that you get from Securely, you'll scroll all the way to the bottom and hit the unsubscribe button, and it's that simple. Next slide. So with Securely, again, we are going to be running all kinds of professional learning sessions at your schools, at your student schools. Our educational technology specialists are on board to work with your principals and administrators and teachers to make sure that you all receive the necessary information that you need to be able to access securely, as well as make sure that you feel comfortable navigating through the app. Next slide. And again, we just want to make sure that you have access to the website and the resources that we have available for you. So we just wanted to make sure you had access to that QR code and that website one more time there. And then lastly, how do you set up your account? Let's just talk about these 5 steps again, really quick. Again, you're going to check that email. Make sure you just in your search box, type Securely, SECURLY, and you will find that email from Securely. Again, if you have not updated your email in Infinite Campus, be sure to do so. From there, you're going to click that login button, and then you will get instant access. And it's 5 simple steps right there ready for you to go. So we can pause there for just a second to make sure that you are able to pay attention and get those steps. And you also have access to the presentation. All right. And then if you have any questions about Securely or how to use it, if you still are like, I really don't know what this is, you can always reach out to your school. We have, like I said, tons of resources ready for you. Our educational technology specialists are ready to jump in and train. And if you need anything, we are always here to help. So with that, I will pass it back to, I believe, Dr. Florence, and we will pause here for questions.
Thank you. Let's see if we have any questions that come up. All right, so if there are no questions at this time, we would like for you to give us some feedback about tonight's session. This is our first engagement as the Division of Academics. We will provide another engagement for you in the spring about any new initiatives that we may have, or even updating you on the initiatives that we're currently doing. So please take a moment, use your phone camera to scan the QR code. There are 4 questions that we are asking for your feedback on. And the last question just asks you if you have any additional questions for us. So we thank you for your time tonight. We hope you found the presentation engaging and helpful, and we hope you have a great evening.